I have this large square sketchbook that I started last spring. Instead of just practice, studies, or even instead of finished pieces, this one is all about diving into illustration ideas, developing concepts, and hopefully as a side effect, finding a more distinct art style and a voice true to myself. To find that voice or style, I'm painting and drawing what I'm most passionate about. Our passions fuel us, and for me that means dark, moody fantasy and fairy tale art, mythology-inspired paintings, and some gothic horror. Specifically, I'm painting a series of illustrations based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. To prepare that next large Dracula illustration I had in mind, sketches were needed, and I'll show you what I do to prepare for a project like this to make the actual painting process go as smoothly as is possible with art. I already have a thumbnail sketch for the overall composition. This started as a rough pencil doodle to find the idea, especially this consuming shape of Dracula's cloak merging with the castle, and I then painted the color thumbnail in Clip Studio. But I have more ideas beyond just that illustration for this series, and here I'm doodling a layout idea for another one. A lot of my Dracula illustrations feature windows as a framing device, so I'm constantly exploring new options, so that once I'm finished with one painting, I have some ideas to start the next one. One character I haven't designed yet is Mina, so on this sketchbook page I also added a couple quick, simple portrait sketches of her. If you haven't read Dracula, don't worry about it. Even without that context, I'm designing the two heroines of the book to be visual opposites. Mina with dark hair, Lucy blonde, and while I added a few waves to Mina's hair here, I later decided on a completely straight-haired look to contrast with Lucy's long curls. If you have multiple characters in an illustration, every detail can create contrast and visual interest. For these sketches, I'm using a variety of black colored pencils as well as my Blackwing matte pencil to get an intense dark value that fits the setting. I'll mention some other materials as I go along and some issues I had with the colored pencil approach as well. I had found some pose references that might fit this new idea, but I never just look at a photograph and decide, yep, that's the one, and copy it. Instead, I sketch a variety of poses and expressions based on those pictures, to get a feel for the figure and see what flows best. The final drawing is then based on all those sketches and photographs combined. For the smallest sketches, I'm using a 0.3 mechanical pencil as well. Since I already mentioned Lucy, she's Dracula's victim, and the color thumbnail only showed her ghost-like form from behind. While I like that composition, I tried to ask myself where the emotional focus was. Dracula's expression? The characters in the background? Wouldn't it be better to have Lucy be an active, expressive part of the painting, instead of a passive shape without a face? The reference photography by Howard Lyon that I'm using here has gorgeous studio lighting and beautiful poses, but the facial expressions are quite neutral. So I want to intensify the drama beyond what the photograph shows. There are a lot of amazing resources out there for references. I just mentioned Howard Lyon. His photography packs are perfect if you love to paint portraits or historical and fantasy-inspired elegant characters. Graphite Studios references are less elegant or ethereal, but more varied across models, angles, and costumes. Adorka stock is perfect for pose references, both casual and dramatic, and then, while DeviantArt has become pretty unusable for me, there's a lot of reference photography of figures in costumes of all kinds to be found there too. For background elements, I sometimes use Unsplash to find references, or go through my own collection of clouds, trees, historical buildings. I try to always take frontal pictures of buildings when traveling, for example, just because you can never have enough window or roof references. For male characters, I don't have a large reference collection, so my partner had to pose facing a light source. Using a variety of reference photography in a single illustration can bring up issues with inconsistent lighting, so I actually really like this approach of finding one beautifully lit reference picture and then creating a similar light situation to match it at home for the second figure. In our case, it just meant that he was facing the window where the light was coming from, so it wasn't super elaborate, but it still really helps with finding light and shadow on a face. I really like this pose here of Lucy reaching out to the other characters, unable to escape. Her story is tragic, and the most disturbing part of reading her chapters in the book is the confusion she feels. She doesn't know what's happening to her, can't remember details. She tries to escape, but is compelled to stay. While the expression I'm sketching here is very simplified, like a comic book character, it brings me one step closer to what I want the real thing to look like. I also sometimes use 3D models from DAS or Blender, but for this scene I had everything I needed already, and I prefer the more natural look and happy accidents of real photography. When sketching character ideas, clothing is usually a big question mark for me. Here, though, I had a treasure trove of references for the time period I was looking for. The Met's costume collection was my primary source, but I focused on dramatic effect before historical accuracy. A lot of the dresses accurate to Bram Stoker's novel's setting sported high collars, and an exposed neck is just kind of quintessential vampire art aesthetic, so I went a bit further back in time for lower necklines and experimented with transparent textiles as well. Here's where another colored pencil shade came in. This cool gray color layered transparently over my pencil and black colored pencil lines to add details and create a visual distinction between portrait and costume. Then I saw this deep green dress and immediately fell in love. In my color thumbnail sketch, Lucy is a ghostly white shape, and emerald green wasn't even remotely on my color palette for this painting, but as soon as I found this dress, I threw my plans out of the window. It will be a less classical look, but I'm beyond excited for the challenge of making this work outside of vampire art conventions. One painting that inspired this piece is by Adolf Jeremy Hirschel, Souls on the Bank of Acheron, or Acheron. I'm honestly not sure how to pronounce that. In the center of the painting kneels a woman, and the transparent bright blue or turquoise textile was what sprung to my mind when I saw that emerald green dress. A color that shouldn't work, that stands out and maybe even clashes, but makes the painting all the more breathtaking. I might make the emerald color slightly lighter than the original dress to hint at Lucy being a ghost, or to stay with Hirsch's painting A Soul on the Bank of Acheron, lamenting her end. Old paintings, once in the public domain, are also an amazing source for inspiration and reference. As you can see, I'm not using this painting to copy poses or faces, but I still kept it in my reference folder to see how dark the contrasts go, how the composition flows, and how the key figures are made to stand out. Here's where I'm unhappy with some of my dark colored pencil drawings. I feel like I lost some of the subtle details of the pencil sketches, especially the ones done with a mechanical pencil, by going in too heavy-handed with a black luminance colored pencil. On the other hand, it does set the mood for what the painting will look like, so maybe not everything is lost. The entire time I'd been sketching, a storm raged. I constantly heard thunder rumbling in the distance, and after nightfall it reached us, the walls shaking with how loud it was. In a way, the perfect fit for a gothic horror book and drawing vampires. I felt enveloped in that storm as it continued even the entire next day, with lightning over the ocean and an oppressive darkness. So, to fit with nature's wrath all around me, I continued my vampiric sketching the next day. I'd love to tell you all that I was wearing a black dress and sipping wine to fit the mood, but despite the storm, it was still 30 degrees Celsius at my desk, so iced coffee it was. Honestly, I also just turn into a little drawing gremlin when I'm focusing on a new project I'm passionate about, with no room for elegance. I can't wait to share the actual painting with you soon, which I've started to work on already. So let me know if seeing me struggle with the most complex illustration I've painted in my life so far would be interesting to you. Like I'd mentioned, my reference materials for male characters are much more sparse, so these two sketches here look a bit more cartoonish, though to be fair, exaggerated features and expressions are great for this sketching stage. Instead of committing to a completely rendered and realistic version already, it leaves room to explore a variety of faces more quickly. The Met's costume collection again came through with jackets from the late 19th century, but I was much more excited to dive into dress options for Mina. You can see how I skipped the heavy black colored pencil accents here and used only lighter shades and precise pencil lines. While this can feel constricting when you first explore an idea, for sketches of costumes, I really like this approach, as I can reference my own sketches in detail more easily. For Mina, I found this beautiful black gown, which, while not entirely era appropriate, just looks perfect for a gothic novel setting. For a black dress like this, the textures, details, and overall structure of the dress have to stand out more than the color. The meaning of the color also fits. Mina does fall under Dracula's spell later on, after all, so her mirroring his color palette can symbolize that. These sketches helped me organize my thoughts and my references and made me beyond excited for the actual painting. I hope that the preparation laid that foundation for the drawings of the main characters, so that I can focus on the challenges of color and brush textures while painting, instead of being distracted by clothing references or figure poses. I'd love to hear about your own passion projects, no matter if you've already started them, if they're a single doodle in your sketchbook or an idea bouncing around your mind. I hope you enjoyed this sketchbook session, a realistic look at how I use the sketchbook for planning illustrations. And you liked the ASMR thunderstorm noises that accompanied all of it. The storm is now over, and it's time to paint. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in future, maybe spooky, drawing videos.